All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm really excited to have you all here. We try to do in our VIP customer group at least once a month. We do a special interview, a conversation with someone that can give a unique perspective on ASEA's products, help you learn a little bit more about this redox technology that you have your hands on. Because honestly, when you first learn about it, it's like seeing the tip of the iceberg. There is so much depth to what we have our hands on, and there's so many different ways that we can utilize it. And honestly, it leads to a lot of questions. So we like to have a member of our medical board come on every so often to share their insight and what redox is, how they explain it in their own words, and then answer your questions directly. And so I want to encourage you. This is not where you're going to be able to unmute and talk with us, but you'll be able to put information in the chat. And so if you're on live on Facebook, just put it in the comments. We'll be collecting those. And if you're here on Zoom with us, you can put it directly in the chat and we'll be collecting those questions. So I want to start out, Dr. Hayes, by just saying thank you so much for taking Saturday morning to come on and share with this community. We have nearly 10,000 people in our ASEA VIP customer community. And so there are a lot of people that will watch this, maybe not this morning with us, but in the weeks and months to come. These interviews really have a long shelf life in that group. And so I thank you for giving your insight and giving your perspective to everybody there.
Well, thank you for asking me. I love sharing. We all become very passionate about these products. So it's fun to come on here and tell my story.
Perfect. Well, let's start with that. Can you give us all some insight into your background, first of all, and then you can kind of just take us right into how you came across ASEA?
Sure. Well, my training, I'm an anesthesiologist and pain specialist. I was double boarded, still keep all my licenses up to date, although I haven't practiced in quite some time. Most currently, about 10 years ago, I also got certified in age management medicine. That was about the time that I got introduced to ASEA. I was kind of on a journey as a physician. It's funny. I like to say all roads lead to redox, right? Because I was having sort of a personal, crisis of faith, if you will, in my medical practice and what I was doing and how I was helping patients. I love being a doctor. I love helping people have a better quality of health. But my husband is also a physician. And one day I said to him, we were walking into the hospital, and I said, does it bother you that every day we come in here and the clinics are full, the surgical schedule is full, the beds in the hospital are full? And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, we've been practicing medicine for a long time, and so have all of our friends. It just seemed to me that at some point in time, we would get ahead of the curve. We would have gotten everybody back to good health, and we could just come in and drink coffee and chit chat for the day. And he just thought that was the funniest thing. But I thought, no, isn't that kind of what we're here for? And as a pain physician, of course, I was taking care of chronic pain and, acute things. Very understandable. You have an infection, you get an antibiotic. You have a broken arm, you get a cast, or you have surgery. Those things I understand. You're fixing a problem as it comes up, and then you're sending people on their way. And to be fair, I have a little bit of that mentality because I started my medical career in a surgical residency, did 4 years of that before switching into anesthesia. So I kind of like that quick fix, okay, something's gone awry, we're going to put it back into place. We're going to send that person on their way to heal and live the rest of their life. Chronic problems just sort of drag on, and you do the best you can, but there was always another drug, another procedure to do to try to get that person back to baseline. And I thought there's got to be a better way. Now, a little bit of a confession, medical doctors, at least in my day, never learned nutrition. We had an entire year of pharmacology, but 1 day of nutrition. And, our nutrition, especially mine back then, was not good at all. We were dissecting cadavers and stuff. And so I wouldn't eat anything that looked like tissue. I lived off of glazed donuts for a year. Funny enough, I was really young. I had a great metabolism, so I didn't gain much weight either. But, it's so funny. So here I was thinking there's got to be other things that could help my patients so that, I just don't have to keep giving them opioids. And I'm so incredibly blessed and thankful that I kind of left that field before this whole opioid crisis, because, really, honestly, doctors are just trying to do the best they can with the information that they have at hand, right? And so that's what we were using to help people, a lot of them, to get people out of pain. But I thought, if it were me, I wouldn't want somebody giving me another pill to help me get back to normal function. And I thought, what else is there? I learned acupuncture. Sorry, I have a shepherd who anytime I get on a Zoom, he's going to come bug me. So I have to keep dog treats right by right by myself here. But anyway, I learned acupuncture, mind body medicine, and also some energy medicine. And I brought in different things into my pain clinic that would help patients and sort of augment natural functions in the body. So I'm very open to that sort of stuff. What people used to call woo-woo medicine. They made fun of me at the university. The residents would wear like little pyramids on their heads and carry around crystals and all. But you know what? This is real stuff. And now the more we learn, things that back then seemed sort of, trendy or off the beaten path are now kind of mainstream, things like infrared and magnetics and resonance and all of that. And of course, nutrition has really taken, a highlight, and learning about our gut and how much our gut does for us, our microbiome and our holobiome, if you will, even the bacteria on our skin. So, like I said, I was on a journey to kind of find things, and that's what led me to wellness and kind of looking at being more proactive. Now, the other thing that happened is my husband, as I mentioned, is also a physician. He's a pediatric anesthesiologist, and he does stem cell research. And his team had some notoriety because they grew lungs outside of the body in a bioreactor and transplanted them into a pig. So he's very much into that sort of stuff, stem cell, organ regeneration, all of that, as well as being a pediatric anesthesiologist. And he was also in the military. And that's where our story kind of starts with ASEA. He was over in Iraq, and they were running. He's a former marathon runner, very athletic, and they ran like 8-10 miles in a sandstorm, and he had some wheezing. And one of the other docs said, you need to get that checked out. You might need a chest x-ray. And he was like, I just ran through a sandstorm. And the guy said, so did the rest of us. We're not wheezing. That's kind of weird. My husband had no other symptoms, but when they did a chest x-ray, they found a huge mass in his chest, sent him home. We live in Galveston, Texas, outside of Houston, Texas. And there's a fantastic hospital there where they took care of him. Very strong medicines, surgery, radiation treatments, the whole 9 yards, but they cured him. And we're so blessed and so thankful for that. But the treatment itself left him very compromised, and he had problems with his oxygenation. And really, even just walking across the room or trying to open up the refrigerator door would leave him breathless. And, he had to have some oxygen, even just to watch TV. So that's where our lives were. I had gone back into training. He was still practicing, but, he was very, very compromised. And we were worried. He was about 57, I guess, at the time. This is about 9 years ago. And we were kind of, here we were, two doctors, honestly, very grateful for his outcome, but not really expecting him to be as compromised as it was. And it's like, how did we not see this coming? But when you have a life-threatening illness, the first priority is to make sure that you survive it, right? So anyway, we were looking for some answers, and we were not expecting it to come in the form of salt water. And when a friend of mine, and actually somebody had brought it to my attention when my mother, right before my husband went through all of this, my mom was dealing with a life-threatening illness as well. And somebody called me and told me about these products. And when she told me it was made from salt water, I was like, no, thank you. And I just, I call it my period of ignorance and arrogance, right? I just like deleted the emails. I thought, please, I got this handled. I'm the doctor. We were talking about doing things like going to the south of Spain for all those treatments and all. And when my mom found out that it entailed coffee enemas, she was like, there are worse things than dying. And I was like, you like coffee. It's just getting it a different way. So, but I didn't. My mom passed away a few months after that. And I never looked at it. And so when it came across my path again, by a friend who I knew better and I trusted him, he was a businessman. He was not a medical person. And most of you know him. His name is Terry Latham. And I was like, are you kidding me? Are you telling me about this saltwater product? What? And he said, look, I don't know what to tell you, doc. People are having amazing responses to it. And I was like, okay, I'll bite, send me some information. And I watched the videos, early on 9 years ago. We didn't have a lot of studies, but we did have Dr. Demon's studies, which we still have. You can look them up at amazingmolecules.com. And he was showing that these athletes had a shift in their metabolites and that they could run further, faster, longer, more endurance. They got further before they hit the wall, as we say, that ventilatory threshold. And I was like, well, if it will help them, maybe it'll help my husband. I mean, it's made from salt water, and it's funny because when Terry first brought it up, I live on an island, I'm surrounded by salt water. I'm like, we shouldn't need to pay for this. But you know what, you guys, it's not just salt water, right? It takes a little bit of time. It's gonna, when I talk about it, being made from salt water and energy, people are like, well, what? Well, if you think about it, if you're making a cake and you put, eggs and sugar and flour and all of that into a bowl, you get a big bowl of goop. You put it into the oven and infuse that energy into it, and suddenly you have cake, right? So that's kind of the miracle of our product too, is it starts with salt water, but it doesn't end up there. So anyway, long story short, we got on the products. Really, it was, tongue in cheek. I didn't really expect anything from it. I thought we were wasting our money. And it was not a fast fix for us. In fact, it's interesting because I had a couple of friends that I shared it with. I had joined, the network marketing part of it, not to do the business. In fact, I told Terry, please don't talk to me about meetings or secret handshakes. I'm not into any of that. I just want to see if my husband's going to get better. But I did it so that I could get the best possible pricing because I knew the gig. And I wanted to put the whole family on it and see how everybody did with it. So I joined, and I had a girlfriend who was just a joiner. If I join something, she joins it. And I was like, what are you doing? You can do this, but you're on your own. And then another girlfriend of mine who is up in Seattle had a situation with her wrist. She had had surgery on it the year before, and it was still, her hand was swelling. The pain was excruciating. She couldn't make a fist. She couldn't write. It was her dominant hand. And it was keeping her up all night. And she was trying everything. She tried everything. And I said, you need to get to a pain clinic and get a definitive diagnosis. But in the meantime, she knew Terry Latham too. I said, Latham has me taking this stuff. This is doctor to nurse. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works, but you've tried everything else. You might as well try this. And if you don't like it, you can get your money back. And I don't care. So that was my big endorsement. Well, a week later, Terry Latham called me and said, hey, your friend Joan signed up. I said, Joan who? He said, your friend up in Seattle. I was like, nah, she wouldn't do that. He said, well, I don't know. I think she did. So I called her and I said, what are you doing? Did you sign up? And she said, oh my gosh. She said, I got the product. She was drinking it. And I don't know what made her think to do this. She actually soaked her hand in the liquid for like an hour. And she said the swelling, she sent me pictures. The swelling in her hand went down. She could make a fist. She could write with it. She slept through the night. Her husband said she hadn't looked that good in months. She said, I'm in. I don't know what this stuff is, but I'm in. So, it's interesting because I had never, when I first was looking at this, I had never heard the verbiage redox signaling molecules. It's just not something that had come across my desk or in any of the journals that I was reading at the time. And so, Terry Latham, who, his background is computer software, is telling me about it. And I have to have a conversation with my sister, who is she's not a medical professional, but she is a medical editor of the newspaper and magazine at my old medical school, the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. And so I was talking to her about it. I said, Latham is telling me about this product. I've never heard of it. She's like, well, I have. And I was like, no, you haven't. And she's like, no, I have. She said, we just got a $10.5 million COBRA grant, NIH grant, to study this in all sorts of systems of the body, the cardiovascular, neurological, orthopedic, aging, diabetes, you name it. We're going to be studying it. Now they're studying the molecules in the body, not our product. But I was like, oh my gosh. So, I mentioned arrogance and ignorance, and ego. So I was like, okay, Terry Latham, the computer guy, knows about it. My sister, the medical editor, knows about it. And I started doing a deep dive. So not only did I watch these videos, but I went to PubMed, which is the NIH area. I call it Google for doctors and healthcare professionals. And at that time, there were 6,000 references to redox signaling. And the more I read, the more compelling I found it. I mean, it's just fascinating science. And it's not that old, 20, 30 years, I think it was in the late 90s that they gave a Nobel Prize for the discovery of one of the first redox molecules. So, it has been around that long. And interestingly enough, it's always been there. These are part of the energy production in the mitochondria of our cells. And they were thought to be just sort of leftover or, throwaway molecules, sort of, waste or what would come out, from your car engine would come out your tailpipe. But they're actually biologically active. And so they started learning more about how these function. Now, back then, we really didn't know. We would know that people would take it and things would seem to get better. And didn't really have a way to describe it. We just said, your mitochondria, you have less mitochondria as you age. And so if you put these molecules back in, your cells are going to do their job better. But it almost seemed like we had pixie dust or a magic wand that we were waving over people, and that changed 2 years ago, when we came out a little over 2 years ago, when we had the Tarot Lab study, that was a gene study that showed that there was actually beneficial genes being turned on by these molecules. Pretty fascinating, by 20 to 31%. So a significant upregulation, if you will, up transcription, where they were copying, these proteins to be made that affect 5 very key areas of our body. Cardiovascular health, gut health, which, I talked a little bit about, is so amazing. Immunity, so our immune status, inflammation throughout the body, which is kind of the beginning of all disease, and hormone modulation. So that actually covers a huge number of people and their afflictions. So anyway, all of this is going on. We get introduced to it. In a couple of months' time, my husband starts getting some of his energy back, some of his stamina back. He starts doing exercise again, what we call cardiac and pulmonary rehab, is able to go longer and longer periods without having any oxygen on. And, now 8, 9 years later, I mean, he is unbelievably healthy. He just got back from walking our 2 shepherds. He walks them for miles every day. He doesn't run anymore, but he doesn't want to, but he's very, very healthy. The whole family is healthy. The people that I shared it with, started sharing it with other people. And, you can't help but share good news like that. So I had finished, back to my being in training for age management. I got done with that. And I thought, my goal, my mission in life is to help people have a better quality of health and a better quality of life. And I thought, I didn't know about this. I don't think too many other people really know about this. We were already seeing the benefits. And, it's an investment in your health. But, it's something that you have to add to the budget if you are interested in having good health. But you guys, it's so much less expensive than being sick. Take my word for it. Even parking at the hospital every day cost a small fortune when my husband was sick. I know that sounds crazy. This is one of the best things that you can do for yourself and for the family and the people that you love, because it's foundational. We now know a lot more about it, even though we're just scratching the surface. So instead of hanging my shingle to be a concierge doc, I decided I was going to be a redox educator. And it's the best decision that I've ever made. I love, love, love sharing redox with people. So anyway, that's the whole story.
I love it. And you do such a beautiful job at sharing it. so we
great.
thank you. I want to ask you just one simple question, and then I want to open it up actually to everybody that's on here. And the question is this: if someone were to ask you, Dr. Hayes, what are redox molecules and how do they work in the body? What would you say? How would you explain it?
It's part of our communication system, right? Most people understand like hormones or neurotransmitters. This is another signaling. This is how our cells, you're going to see my husband sneaking in the back, how our cells speak to each other. We talk about, defending ourselves, detect, protect, repair, replace. It's kind of how we talk about how these molecules work. And if you thought about your little cells having like a flag system, like, oh, danger here, red flag or green flag for go. They don't have flags, but they do have chemicals. And so they use it to signal each other. We don't really think about it, but if you've cut yourself, we've all cut ourselves and we've watched it heal. Well, how does that happen? If you've ever given some real thought to it, as soon as there's damage to the epithelium, there's all sorts of signals given off by the different cells that call in they call in the immune cells to fight off any bacteria or anything that's invading. They call in fibroblasts to put down new cell, tissue matrix and all. So there's all of these signals being given that call in the troops and start different cascades. So it's the way our cells speak to each other. So they communicate using these different chemicals, these different molecules. I also like to call it a biohack, because really these molecules are made in the mitochondria, and we are replenishing them, something that we already have in every cell of our body, and we have trillions of them. But they may be out of balance and they may be at a deficit because we lose 10% of our mitochondria, which are our energy producing organelles. We lose 10% per decade after puberty. So you get to be around my age, and I'm almost 62, and you're kind of running on fumes, right? So by replacing this, by replenishing it, we're just filling up those coffers, and it allows our cells to speak to each other more crisply, more clearly. And, the communication is better. And so things work better. Plus, as I said, it also turns on beneficial genes, activates the NRF2 pathway, activates the antioxidants, a whole host of other things. Some we're just learning about. So yeah, so I basically keep it pretty simple. I say it's a biohack that helps your body work better. It's going to slow the aging process. It's going to help your cells do what they were meant to do, and it's going to bring you back into balance. That's what we're looking for, right? Our bodies are miraculous things, and they know how to heal themselves. All we're doing is propping up that benefit.
I love
so
it.
I hope that helps.
It does. I think saying it's a biohack kind of gets everybody's attention. Go, wait, what do you mean? It's perfect.
The good health. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's been a few questions in the chat, so I'm gonna bop over to our chat and actually see, everyone that's here this morning, what it is that they're wanting to know. So if you haven't put your chat or your question in the chat yet, please go ahead. But some of you have, and so, Dr. Hayes, as best you can, I'll read these and you go ahead and answer them as you can. So the first question that I'm seeing is, this person has a lot of anxiety, and they said that when they take the product, they have a detox, a severe detox, and then so they stopped taking it, and they're wondering how to deal with anxiety and depression. And is this something that would be helpful for that? And how do they get past that little bit of fear with the detox?
Wow, great question. One of the first things that we saw, my mom had passed away, so I was in a funk, and my son had gone through some stuff. He had just, here's his grandmother being sick, his dad being sick. He had just started college, and he was going through some real stuff too. One of the first things we noticed with this product, now let me tell you, the product goes to work as soon as you take it, and it doesn't need audience participation. It's working whether you feel it or notice it or not. But it's always nice to feel the benefit or feel the change. And the first thing that we noticed was better moods. I called the company and I said, do you ever have anybody report mood elevation? And they said, all the time. Well, now that study that was done, with the EGR1 gene, one of the pathways that's well studied with that is serotonin levels. So we know it does affect serotonin. So I see a lot of people who have anxiety, have some depression, that benefit. Also, if you look at our nutritionals, there's a lot of different things like polyphenols that really help with that. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch, right? I'm not saying don't go to your doctor if you're going to a doctor and get treated by any means, but a lot of times, and another place to look at is your gut. There's a communication between your gut and your brain. These little guys that actually, there's a way more of them, right, than there are of us. We're very, very dependent on the bacteria in our gut, and they can change the way you think or your mood as well. So look at those things, get on the product. And if you're going through a detox, here's a couple of things. Start slow, start with the gel, start with spritzing it under your tongue or spritzing it on your skin. You don't necessarily, everybody is on their own journey towards health, right? And if you're really, really toxic, and there's a lot of people who are, we live in a toxic world right now. Sometimes, if you tell them to drink a bunch, drink 4 ounces or 8 ounces, man, it'll throw them for a loop. I've seen it, people have to go to bed because they just get so tired, they get overwhelmed. So start slow. I always have people start with 2 ounces, even if they seem like perfectly healthy, 2 ounces twice a day, plenty of water to flush stuff through, right? As you're getting it out of the tissues, you got to get it out of the body. You want to make sure all those routes of elimination are open. Peeing, pooping, sweating, everything. If you can get those toxins out of the body, you're going to be better off. But if you react to it, because you're rebalancing the body, right? So if you're having a bad reaction to it, slow it down to make it more comfortable. Some people promote powering through, but I actually like to kind of go a more conservative route than that. Put the gel on the bottom of your feet. You can actually put the product in your mouth. Just hold it there for 30, 60 seconds, swish it around and spit it back out. In fact, my dad's been doing this for 8 years. He hates the taste of it. And so I got him to do that. He gargles with it, swishes it around. I don't have the heart to tell him he has no taste buds in his stomach, right? They're all in his mouth. So he's getting all the taste, but it makes him happy. So if, do what you can. If you can't tolerate the liquid, go with the gel. For a while, I think it was over a year, Australia could not get the liquid product. All they had was the gel. So they were using huge amounts of it from head to toe and getting great health benefits. So try that. It's going to be a slower absorption. And of course, this stuff is magical anyway. So I hope that helps and good luck to you. Stick with it because, your blessing is down the road.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So lots of questions came in. I'm trying to keep up with them. So the next one that came in, maybe you could briefly answer this. It said, would it be possible for the cell regeneration process from redox signaling to help the body get rid of a growth that's not an actual disease, but has become part of the body?
You know what? Our body is designed to be able to recognize things as foreign or abnormal. And sometimes that surveillance system gets overwhelmed. And so what we're doing by supporting it, I can't make any promises that it's going to do it, but I have heard multiple stories, and you can even go to some of the places like realredoxresults.com and ASEA Healthy Self and read about things that, skin tags, moles, things like that just seem to disappear. So if you empower the body to do what it's meant to do, then it stands to reason that things like this may go away. So we can't make, and let me just say we can't make any medical claims, even though I'm a medical doctor. I can't say that this cures, treats, diagnoses anything, right? All we're doing is empowering the body to do its job better, giving it the tools it needs. So I would go ahead and give it a try. What I tell people is I can't make any guarantees about that. It does what it does. However, for a lot of people, it's the answer to prayer. And it's non-toxic. It's 100% non-toxic. So you literally have nothing to lose. Even if that growth doesn't respond to it, you're going to get so many other benefits. You're going to have better energy, better sleep, enhanced healing. You're going to be doing your body so much good. And, I would love to hear how that turns out. So, I have a positive feeling about it, but.
Perfectly said. And someone else asked a question kind of similar. And I would say the person that was asking about abnormal cellular health and issues of that nature, very similar question. And I would say, what Dr. Hayes just answered would apply to that question as well. So the next question is about someone that has like a degenerative mitochondrial disease and wondering, will this help with that? And what is the impact with redox in a situation like that? And someone else, I'm going to just add this onto it, says that their doctor says they have to limit their water intake. And so what impact does that have then when they're taking redox?
There's a lot of people who are on fluid restriction, for a number of different reasons. So I'll answer that one first and get to the other one. You know what? Like I just said before, you don't have to swallow it, right? You can swish it around in your mouth, let it be taken up. All the molecules can be absorbed through the mucosa, and then you can spit it out or use the gel, right? There's plenty of different ways to get it into the body without really causing too much. I mean, there are those, those of us who have been on it for a while, and especially after the study that was done that I referred to earlier, the study was done with 8 ounces. And so most of us have promoted going up to 8 ounces because we saw the benefit that it had in healthy 35-year-olds. And some of us, are past that. And so I drink somewhere between, 8 ounces and 16 ounces a day. That's 2 cups, you guys. It's not that much, but depending on how severe your fluid restriction is, you can get away with it by spritzing it, by holding it in your mouth, by using the gel. So that one I think we have covered. There's a lot of mitochondrial dysfunction going on right now. The biggest reason for mitochondrial dysfunction is aging. And a lot of aging has to do with upsets in our immune system, really. I can get into a little bit more of that, but we're all fighting it. But to have something genetic with the mitochondria, that could be pretty severe. This is one aspect. These molecules are one part of the job of the mitochondria. I would definitely give it a try. Whether or not it's going to totally offset that, I certainly can't speak to that. But if it were me and it was my family that had a situation like that, I would definitely give Redox a try and see if it doesn't give them some benefit. I think it will. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. The next one is an interesting question. They said, is it a far leap to think that if a person hasn't felt anything after 90 days of drinking Redox, is it working on something that hasn't yet surfaced and they're just not aware of, compared to someone that maybe feels something right away?
Great question. And I'll tell you, the first thing that happened for me is I had gone to my doctor, and I had had my blood test done, a few months before. And he was just talking to me about it. And it was my cholesterol panel. My total cholesterol was a little elevated. And I was about to get the talk, right? The lifestyle talk. And, lifestyle is really the basis, or lifestyle choices are the basis of most diseases. And so he said, okay, we're going to get another baseline today. And, then we're going to talk about changes that you can make. Because I didn't want to go on any medications. I didn't want to do anything like that. So I hadn't changed anything. I was happy to, talk about diet and whatnot. Well, he called me and he said, did you start yourself on a statin? And I was like, no, I wouldn't do that. Why? My total cholesterol dropped from, I think it was like 204 to 176 without my doing anything. He said, what caused this? And I was like, I have no idea. I had no idea that drinking Redox molecules would have any effect on something like that. That's not something I felt. You don't feel that. You don't feel it until your arteries get clogged and maybe you have some. So yeah, it goes to work right away. And now we know, and of course, Dr. Neiman did some studies that shows it decreases, taking this product decreases oxidized LDL, which is one of the bad actors in that. We also know that it dilates arteries and blood vessels. So 2 things that kind of counteract those things as far as heart disease and all go. So interesting. Like I said, I didn't feel that. So it's working. Like I said, you don't have to have audience participation. We all feel better when we feel the difference, when we feel the energy, and when we start sleeping better. But just stay with it. Fill out that physical tracker that you get in the box, and keep track of that every week and see if something's changing. Because I'll tell you, as a pain doctor, I would have people come in and I would ask them where was their pain on a scale from 0, no pain, to 10, pain they didn't think they could survive. And they might come in and they might say it's 8 out of 10. For the majority of the day, it's 8 out of 10. And they'll come back, a month later on the treatment plan. And I'd say, where's your pain? They'll be like, doctor, I still have pain. I'd be like, okay, what level? Well, I'm a 6. It's like, okay, but you're not an 8 anymore. So we are making progress, just not enough progress to make you happy, right? We have different levels that we want to get to. So that, I promise you, that's happening. I love this story. One of my best friends, Masami Handloff, she's Asian. And she had, when they first came out with the gel, she sent me a picture of her husband's neck. And I was like, wow, it was a before and after. It didn't have his face on it, so I didn't know whose neck. I was like, whose neck is that? What a difference. And she said, it's my husband, Bruce's. And I was like, wow. And she said, but it doesn't work for me. The gel doesn't work for me. And I said, oh, okay. Well, you have beautiful porcelain skin, and, maybe, you don't have as much damage as the rest of us have. And I said, did you take a before picture? And she said, yeah. I said, well, please take an after picture and just look at them side by side, right? Because she's looking at her face every day. So she's not noticing the changes. You guys, the change was so drastic that they used it in the brochure. And that was, she just didn't see it. She didn't notice it. But when you looked at those side by side, I didn't do that. But if you want to see a before and after, go look at my old medical professional picture. And people were like, oh my God, you look 10 years younger than you did. And I'm 10 years older than that picture, or 9 years older, 8 years, something like that. So yeah, so you may not notice it, but good things are happening. I tell people vitamin D is really important, but when I take vitamin D, I'm not all of a sudden shooting sunshine out my fingertips, right? But I know it's in there doing the job that it's supposed to do. So just stick with it and get it on other people. I always hear this. I always hear people say, if I have a response, if it works for me, then I'm going to tell everybody. I'm like, no, get it on everybody and see what it does. Put it on your pets. I don't know if I can say that because it's not really made for animals, but so many people have great results with their pets. Put it on your pets, put it on your kids, put it on your husband, your spouse. See how it responds, because everybody is on their own journey. Everybody is starting from a different starting place, and they're going to have a different response.
Excellent advice. I'm going to lump, I've gotten a whole bunch of questions about, specific issues from dementia to depression to autism to this, that, and the other happening. And also the questions about age. So people that are 13, people in their 20s, people, in their 60s and 70s. And the predominant question is, look, with X issue at X age, how much should I be taking? Is there a recommendation? What should I know about this? And can you give any advice?
Sure. And you know what, you guys, it doesn't matter what your challenge is. If it involves a cell, then probably you're going to benefit from taking this product. Everybody's going to benefit. Now, when we look at kids, we think of kids as being chock full of redox molecules, but they're also being, there's a lot of toxins in our environment. There's a lot of, Roundup in our food, different things that we're fighting, and it can kind of overwhelm the system that we have in place. So, I would have my kids on this as well. It's non-toxic. It's not going to hurt them. But as far as how much to give them, probably kids could get by with less because they're generally healthy. Their cells are dividing normally. If you look at a kid and they fall down, especially the little ones, they fall down, they scrape their knee, it's like miraculously healed by the next day. But if you've ever had a kid, and my nephew, who was a little tiny guy, fell and got a big knot on his head, and we used the gel, and it was amazing. We literally watched it subside. The swelling went down, the bruising went away. We were like, that seemed like a miracle. So yeah, you can use this on kids. I like to say the bigger the problem, the bigger the fire, the more firepower you need, the bigger a hose. And so when people have a challenge, first, if they're over 45, 50, we already know they're at a deficit. So if they can swing it, I like for them to double up. Start at that 2 ounces twice a day and then go up. I really like for people to be on 8 ounces twice a day, even more if they've got a big challenge. And then, if it's a big challenge, stay on that higher amount, and it also depends on what people can afford. If I'm just replacing or filling up those coffers, I'll have them stop at a month and kind of reassess and see how they feel, because it is an investment, you guys. And I want everybody to I don't want people to think, oh, if I can't afford 8 ounces, then this isn't going to work for me. It's going to work. We just have to set your expectations. It may be a little longer before you feel it. We say 30% within a month, 90% of people feel a difference within 90 days. And so I tell people, as a physician, I want all of the cells to be replicating, the ones that are going to within that time period. And that's going to happen within a 90 to 120 day period. So stay on it for that long, give it that much time. Sometimes people, if the value is not there, they will go off of it. But often when they do, if you'll stay in touch with them, they will notice that things are creeping back in, things that they didn't even realize were being taken care of. I know, we used to have the charge up call every day, and I was listening to it just because I wanted to hear what other people experienced. And somebody was talking about having discomfort in their shoulder. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened to my shoulder? I had something wrong with my shoulder that every night, if I rolled over on that shoulder, I would wake up and kind of
holler out in pain. And my husband was like, you got to go see an orthopedist. You got to figure out what's going on with that shoulder. And I knew if I went to see an orthopod, I was going to get scoped or something else that I didn't want. And so I was putting it off. I was just sort of ignoring it like a lot of us do, especially physicians. And it just went away. It just went away. But here's the interesting thing. When things like that go away, you forget about them. You forget you ever had them until something reminds you of it. So that's why it's so important to track it. So I don't want to take away anybody's hope. If all you can afford is to take 2 ounces twice a day, take your 2 ounces twice a day. You're doing your body good. It will eventually, you will start noticing more and more. I'm noticing stuff after 9 years, things are still happening. I'm still getting new benefits. It's almost like taking layers off an onion, right? It gets to deeper and deeper healing. And, before, I'm not sure I adequately answered the thing about, yes, if someone asked, are there things going on that maybe I don't know about? You guys, before you get that diagnosis, things have been going on for a long time. So, yes, prevention is the most important thing that we have. People don't really want to invest when they think everything is going well, right? You think, okay, you're fine. Maybe you're getting little signs of something. Maybe your energy isn't what it used to be. You're leaning in the shower, hoping that the Irish Spring will wake you up, or the pot of coffee or whatever. So, we accept this stuff as we get older, which we don't really need to. But let me tell you what, you get a bad diagnosis and people will spend their life savings trying to get back to health, right? So, prevention is key. So I hope that helps. Yes, I like for people to take more if they can and if they can afford it, but it's okay if you can't. You just have to set your expectations. Okay.
Perfectly said. This is a question that I've been getting it in a lot of different ways from a lot of people. The question is about the pandemic, what's currently going on. Is there a role that Redox can play with helping my body? Is there a role that Redox can play after I get my vaccine to help with inflammation and things on the site? Can we speak to anything about this?
We can't address it directly because for whatever reason, the government is or the FDA is coming down hard on people who are talking about even things. I have a girlfriend who is a physician and she's part of ASEA, and she was using high dose vitamin C, and she got sort of a cease and desist letter saying, knock it off. Don't be talking about this. So we can't really address it directly. Here's what I will tell you. We're talking about the immune system, and you really want to make sure that your immune system is healthy. And Redox is a part of that. I talked about, everything about the communication between the cells. Well, inflammatory cells have something called cytokines, and that's been pretty prevalent in the news right now, cytokine storms and things like that. When we talk about, we have a tendency to talk about boosting our immune system. We really want to make sure that we have a healthy response, because there are things in our immune system that are pro-inflammatory and there are things that are anti-inflammatory. And so the cytokines are pro-inflammatory, at least the way they're working here. So if you have something that kind of helps to fight inflammation, which we know Redox does, helps to support your immune system, which we know Redox does, it makes sense that this would be part of your your tool chest to stay healthy, right? But you want to do all the other things too. Redox is foundational. It's what our cells need in the machinery. If you talk about your body as being like a vehicle of a car, the things that the food and the supplements and all that we're putting into the gas tank, it's like high octane gas. The Redox works is in the engine. It's kind of like the spark plugs, if you will. So you need both sides. So to stay as healthy as you possibly can be, you want to make sure that you're getting plenty of vitamin D, get out and get some sunshine, get out in nature, take your Redox, take your supplements, get your gut flora up to where it needs to be. And then there's a number of other supplements that, you can look at, I talked about vitamin D, zinc, quercetin, things like that. And the polyphenols in our, we have amazing nutritional products. Please take a look at those if you haven't already. And if you need to learn a little bit more, there are sheets in our library that kind of list everything that's in them and the benefits of those things. It's really very helpful. And they're extremely thoughtful, well thought out
products that are also sourced so that number one, they're whole foods, right? So you can eat them like foods. So it's giving you everything that you need from those nutritions, not just the vitamins and minerals, but all of the factors that are necessary with them. So take a look at those, make sure that you're eating right, get some exercise, get good sleep, do all the things that we know to keep your immune system up. And that's going to be your best defense. Now, I can only talk anecdotally, but there's been a lot of people who have taken the vaccine, who have had varying responses. And, I would definitely advise taking the liquid before and after and using the gel so that you have less inflammation in your arm. But that's probably about as much as I can say.
Perfect.
So,
I know. I couldn't not ask the question because it got asked to me so many times. So hopefully that answers everything that people were wondering. And two last questions. They're much easier, Dr. Hayes, and then we'll wrap up. One is, why does it taste strange? So can you talk about how come ASEA tastes different to different people?
Yeah, and you know what, it does kind of taste like, it's funny because it says salt and water, but it does have a chloride ion in there. And so when you first get started on it, it tastes sort of like the YMCA pool water, but it also depends on your physiology. Like when I first got my husband started on it, he wouldn't drink it on his own. I had to pour it for him every day. And oh my gosh, I mean, my son and I were drinking it and he was practically rolling on the floor. The theatrics were just over the top, drama queen. And I was like, what is, put on your big boy pants. And then we were at a conference where somebody was talking about the worse your metabolism is or your physiology is, the worse it tastes. And he was like vindicated, right? He's like, see, and I have found that to be true. And I've even found that if you overindulge, like maybe, you had some alcohol or maybe too much alcohol or too much food or whatever, the next day when you take it, it might have a different taste to it as well. So, use that as a little bit of a guide. I know it's sort of a hard sell when you tell people the worse it tastes, the more you need it, but it's kind of true. So it might mean that you're really out of balance. So stick with it, use some of those techniques that I talked about earlier. If you really can't tolerate the taste, and some people say it makes them sick to their stomach, or, like my dad, is another little bit of a drama queen with it, have them spritz it, have them just use it in their mouth and swish and spit. Use the gel, so there's ways around it. But yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? It's the chloride ion. People talk about chlorine, and there might be like tiny minuscule amounts because what's in it, and we don't have it quantified or actually even qualified. We don't know. We haven't been told exactly what the different molecules are, although you can pull those the different atoms apart and put them together in different ways and figure it out. But it uses what our cells use. It turns it into the molecules that our cells use. And some of the things that are used by some of our immune cells are toxic, but let's take it, I can't say for sure, but say like hydrogen peroxide. We're all pretty familiar with hydrogen peroxide. And that, you can put on a cut and it's going to bubble up and it's going to take care of stuff, but it's also can be damaging. But the interesting thing is that our body knows how to neutralize it, knows how to use something and then neutralize it, right? So that's part of the process of what these do. They go in, they do their job, and then they're gone. So anyway, hope that answered that.
It does. And the last question, it's interesting because it's kind of, it's similar and different, but the question is, well, if I'm taking other drugs, is that going to impact my redox? And then also, is the food that I'm eating and ingesting going to make a difference in the way that redox works?
Hey, great questions. Now, it doesn't interfere with any of your drugs, but what it does do, and I tell people to look out for this, if you're on drugs, maybe for your blood pressure or blood sugar, things like that, taking this, when I call it a biohack, it's almost like you've started some good habits like diet and exercise. And so you're going to see changes like that. So that if you've got high blood pressure and all of a sudden you're eating better and you're starting to exercise and all, you may be able to taper off of that blood pressure medicine, maybe even come off of it altogether. Same thing with this. We start to see the body work better. So it starts to put things back into homeostasis or balance. And so maybe some of those medications over time, you will be able to decrease or come off. No promises, but we see this quite often.
So be aware of that, keep an eye on it, work with your doctor and see if some of those things can't be decreased. As far as the food that we eat, remember there's those two arms, right? There's the engine working and then there's what you're putting in the gas tank. So I tell people, if you're sitting on the sofa and you've got a clicker in one hand and a Big Mac in the other, you probably need these molecules just to stay alive, right? But if you're eating well, if you're eating healthy and you've got a healthy lifestyle, you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck. Do everything good. Don't just, rely on these to help mitigate the damage that you're doing. If you really want optimal health and yes, of course, we want to help everybody who has a physical challenge. I'm sorry, I just got to note my internet is. I hope I'm not freezing. We want to help everybody who has a health challenge, but we also want to help people have optimal health, right? People who are interested in a healthy lifestyle and what they can do to get to the next level, to kind of stave off the aging process. Because you know what, we all want to live to be 90, 100, 110, but we don't want to be in wheelchairs and nursing homes, right? We want to be out there, mountain climbing, over in the mountains, skiing, golfing, traveling, having fun. We want to leave this world worn out and having lived it to its fullest. And that's what a lot of us are interested in. So yeah, if you've got a really bad lifestyle, by all means take it. If you're not going to change those habits, by all means take it. But the more good you can do for yourself, the bigger result you're going to get from your Redox, because it's going to be able to go deeper and deeper and take care of some things. So
perfectly said. Well, I want to say thank you. And for everyone that asked questions, I apologize if we couldn't get your specific question answered, but there were so many coming in that I had to kind of group them. And hopefully that helped. This recording will be available in the ASEA VIP customer group. And we'll also be putting the link on Vimeo and on YouTube. So for those of you that are part of ASEA United and would like to share this with people that maybe aren't customers yet, I'll be posting that later today and you can do that. Those of you that are in the VIP group, this will be under the hashtag interviews and you'll be able to tag people in it into the future. And Dr. Hayes, you are such a pleasure to listen to. I sit here and I'm literally on the edge of my seat and I've been learning about Redox for 7 years. And the way you explain this is so beautiful. It makes it make sense. It makes it simple. And you do it in such an incredible way. I'm so grateful for your time this morning and anything you want to end with.
You know what? Thank you. That's very appreciated. So no, I just love sharing it. You guys, this is my passion and my mission in life is to, like I said, help people have a better quality of life, a better quality of health. And we can do it with these products. It is fantastic. And like I said, we're just scratching the surface. We're just learning how powerful these molecules really are. And, to be at the forefront of this, to know about it before most medical professionals know about it, before most researchers know about it. It's gaining, right? There's research labs now for Redox at Harvard University and international conferences. But you guys, you have had a look behind the curtain before most people. It's such a gift. And you can go out, you don't have to have a medical degree. You don't have to be a scientist or anything. You just have to care about other people and want to share with them. And honest to gosh, it's so easy to do. So I hope you'll take the time to bless somebody else's life by sharing Redox with them. So thank you, Danielle. It's been a pleasure to be here. And thank you, everybody. Thank you for your questions.
Yes, absolutely. And guys, so we do a special interview once a month in the ASEA VIP customer group, and we rotate between an Ask the Doctor like this and something that's just more informational. So we've done interviews with the founder, Tyler Norton, with Scott Aldred that runs the production facility. So check those interviews out. And yes, we will be doing times when you can ask the doctor because there's so many questions with this. We know, and we love to get them answered. So just pay attention. The events are in the VIP group, and we will see you next month. Thank you, Dr. Hayes.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Danielle.